Revealed. 7 sinister secrets from a cursed Mexican TV series that will haunt you forever. The night was still, almost too still, as Lisa sat curled up on the couch, the flickering light of the TV casting ghostly shadows across the living room. "What have you done, Max?" she whispered, her voice trembling with dread. That cursed show, the one everyone warned about, had ensnared her son in its web. The screen displayed twisted folklore, characters sitting silently, their eyes hollow, beckoning viewers into a world where nightmares lived. The title screen alone felt like an ominous omen. It all began innocently, a bonding moment over another late-night binge. But the show was dripping in a tension that seeped into their lives like fog. Each episode sparked a paralyzing fear. The chilling whispers that once flowed through the story now echoed in the corners of their home. The once cozy Maplewood now seemed tainted, as though shadows were stretching beyond the trees, curling around the edges of her peaceful existence. There were whispers in the wind, voices in the dark, a reminder that some folklore exists far too close to the truth. As Max gaped at the screen, eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement, Lisa forced a smile, willing herself to overlook the growing unease crushing her chest. She felt it, though, the steady pulse of dread. Shadows flitted past the window, their shapes suggestive of something watchful. It felt like the stories were reaching out, hungry for life. Just a TV show, she muttered to herself. Just a stupid TV show. But then, it wasn't just the TV. The first sign came in the form of a large, swirling symbol etched on their front porch. The afternoon sun had cleared away the misty morning, revealing it like a malevolent gift. Cold fear gripped her heart. She asked the neighbors. Just a prank, they said. Yet, Lisa couldn't shake the cold shivers crawling down her spine. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Despite the residents' dismissals, the darkness festered in their quiet town. Lisa's pulse quickened. The night felt heavier, shadows looming ever larger. As she wrapped her arms around Max, he shivered, sensing her fear. They had never heard the whispers before, never seen the eyes reflecting from the bushes, watching, and that's when Mr. Ortiz, their neighbor, arrived. His face twisted with something. Was it fear, concern, or the weight of a shared secret? He took her aside, his grip firm. You need to stop watching that show. It's tied to an old curse. His breathing quickened, panic flashing in his eyes. She felt the world close around them, a claustrophobic sensation, as horror seeped onto their doorstep. What if the stories were true? What if her son was not just caught in a show, but caught in a battle against something ancient? The ground trembled beneath her, like their lives were unknitting at the seams. As they stood there, whispers crescendoed into an agonizing wail, shadows dancing around, waiting, just waiting. Lisa's heart raced, terror wrapping around her throat. Outside, the glowing symbols pulsed slowly, rhythmically like a heartbeat, turning their home into a chilling stage for a play she didn't want to star in. With nowhere to turn and dread clawing at her insides, Lisa felt the abyss waiting, ready to draw them in. Is this the beginning of the end, or did the real horror lie in what came next? The walls of the house whispered no, screamed an echo of impending doom, as Lisa fought to swallow the fear rising in her throat. Max's little fingers gripped her hand tightly. His face was as pale as the moonlight spilling through the window, almost skeletal in the night's embrace. She could feel his heart pounding against her arm, matching the frantic rhythm of their fears. Mom, Max trembled, his wide eyes flitting towards the shadows gathering in their living room. What if the show gets us too? I won't let that happen. We'll turn it off together. Each word felt like a promise etched in desperation. She turned her gaze back to Mr. Ortiz, whose haunted expression had deepened under the weight of reality. The warmth of his presence melted back into the chill of the night. "What do we do?" she pressed, urgency threading her voice. He shifted nervously, glancing around, as if sensing invisible eyes. "Do you have any salt? It's for protection to keep negative energy away." Salt? The absurdity of the idea made her wonder if they were losing their grip on sanity. But maybe this wasn't just about common sense. This was about survival. The deep-rooted fear in Ortiz's gaze urged her to comply. She nodded slowly and slipped into the kitchen, leaving Max with the somber man, hoping the space would protect him. As she gathered the salt, the air thickened, pregnant with dread. The whispers slithered through the air, weaving together into a chorus of wailing voices. "Turn it off," they echoed, ethereal and chilling. Her hand shook, and the salt container slipped, scattering across the floor like tiny snowflakes, a grim omen. When she returned, Max was gone. Max? Panic ignited within her as she rushed back to the living room, throwing glances into every shadow. The TV flickered now, with an intensity that felt alive, images morphing into grotesque faces twisted in agony. And there was Max, standing transfixed in front of the screen, mouth agape, as characters from the show reached out, their fingers stretching towards him, beckoning. With one mighty step, she reached for Max, snatching him away. His body felt cold, as if the life had drained from him. She clutched him tight, feeling the tremors rattle through them both. "Mom, I can't look away," he whispered, as his eyes turned glassy. His voice was barely audible beneath the cacophony of the show's haunting theme. The lights pulsed rhythmically, shadows flickering. Was it real or an illusion? The walls closed in, engulfing them in a darkness that felt alive. She could almost hear it breathing. "Max, look at me. Please." She shook him gently, but he remained in a trance. The characters on the screen leered, their grins widening, wickedly inviting. It was then Lisa remembered something Mr. Ortiz had said: "You have to break the connection." Heart racing, she hurled the salt against the TV, a desperate act against the malevolence crawling through her veins. "Get away from us." A deafening screech erupted, drowning the whispers. The screen erupted in bursts of static, the grotesque figures recoiling as if struck. Then, an army of shadows poured out of the TV, swirling in a frenzy, and Lisa felt the air turn sour, thick with malevolence. The energy shifted, and she could hear distant wails, screams for help from places untold. With a surge of adrenaline, she yanked Max's hand and bolted for the door, only to find it slammed shut, locked against them. The shadows danced closer, flickering like candle flames, eager to snuff out any hope. Lisa's heart thudded in a frantic rhythm, racing against time. "Mom, what is happening?" Max's questioning tone broke through. "Hold on, Max." But the walls began to close in, shadows reaching for her and Max, tightening their grip. She felt the sinister pull of the stories creeping closer, crowding her mind, whispering the horror she couldn't escape. The night was about to consume them whole, and she knew deep down this was just the beginning. And then, just as the shadows were about to claim them, a light broke through the darkness, a figure standing just beyond the threshold, silhouetted against the brightness. "Let them go," it commanded, voice reverberating through the thick air. Lisa's breath hitched. Who was this savior? And could they truly defeat what the cursed series had unleashed? As hope flickered like a dying ember, a terrifying truth dawned on her. The darkness wasn't just watching, it was beginning to laugh. What would happen next? And was there any chance she'd be able to save Max from the clutches of the curse? "Let them go," the voice echoed, cutting through the dark like a knife. The figure stood rigid against the pulsing shadows. Lisa struggled to decipher their features, but the light obstructed her view. For a moment, she hesitated, torn between that glimmer of hope and the relentless grip of darkness. The shadows kept advancing, growing more aggressive, almost as if they were alive, sensing her hesitation. "Mom!" Max's tiny voice trembled. "Who is that?" I don't know," she gasped, heart racing as the temperature in the room plummeted, biting into her skin. Lisa instinctively shielded Max, feeling exposed yet determined to protect him. The figure stepped forward, breaking through the suffocating shadows. As they emerged, the light dimmed slightly, revealing an unfamiliar face, long hair illuminated with an otherworldly glow, eyes blazing with urgency. They seemed out of time, wearing clothing that flickered between modern and something ancient, evoking a sense of dread. "Stay close," the figure yelled, reaching out a hand toward them. Before Lisa could respond, the shadows lunged at the figure, their twisted forms stretching ominously. The newcomer didn't flinch. Instead, they raised a hand, and for a brief moment, the shadows halted, swirling in confusion. "Break the binding?" they shouted, urgency cracking their voice. "The power of the show has its roots in the symbols. Find the markings in the house, destroy them." "Markings?" Confusion tangled with her desperation. Her heart raced with questions. Would they truly save them? Or was this another trick, another way to draw them deeper into the nightmare? "Go!" the figure urged, and before she could comprehend, they were engulfed by the shadows. A blood-curdling scream followed, striking fear into Lisa's heart. "Find them!" The figure's voice faded, torn away, as the shadows surged back toward her. Lisa held Max tighter. "We need to move!" she shouted, her voice high-pitched with fear. Together, they scrambled away from the rushing darkness, adrenaline pushing her forward. "Where do we look?" Max whimpered, desperately glancing around the dimly lit room as shadows darted close. "Anywhere. They might be hidden." As they moved through the living room, the oppressive atmosphere thickened, the air laced with whispers that twisted around them. "It's too late, you can't escape," the mocking tones seeped into her mind, igniting a surge of panic. "Mom!" Max cried, pointing toward the wall. "Look! There, just beneath the peeling paint, a strange sigil glowed faintly. Symbols spiraled and morphed, pulsing like a heartbeat. A chill shot down Lisa's spine. Could this be what the figure meant? She had no time to question, only time to act. "Stay close," she demanded, her voice steadying as a wave of determination surged through her. She needed to break the hold of the show, to destroy that marking and its connection to the horrors they faced. Without thinking, she grabbed a chair from the kitchen, its wooden legs scraping against the floor, a sound of defiance against the looming dread. "Max, cover your ears." With all her strength, she brought the chair down against the sigil. A jagged crack tore through the air as the wood splintered upon impact, the mark shimmering violently. As each swing landed, a piercing wail erupted from the shadows, a sound that clawed at their sanity. Finally, with a final blow, the symbol shattered, splintering into dust. A sudden silence fell, and the shadows recoiled as if stung, retreating momentarily to regroup. Lisa felt the air shift, clarity rushing back. But it was short-lived. From the depths of the TV, a figure emerged, one of the sinister characters, their malevolent face twisted in rage. It was coming for Max, for them. "Run!" Lisa screamed. As they dashed toward the door, the shadows, feeling the loss of their binding, surged back with a vengeance. Would they make it out alive? Could they find safety amidst the chaos? The answer lingered like a dark fog, wrapping tighter around them as they bolted for the exit. The night was far from over, and terror was only beginning to unfurl. Just then, as they reached the front door, it swung wide open, revealing a narrow alleyway filled with darkness and uncertain escape. Would they dare step into the unknown? "Mom, what if it's worse?" Max whispered, fear skittering across his face. Sometimes, Max, we have to face the darkness to find the light. They took a breath, holding tightly to each other, poised on the brink of an unfathomable decision. And behind them, the laughter echoed a haunting promise of the nightmare to come. Would they summon the courage to escape the shadows, or would they succumb to the horror waiting just beyond the door? The moment Lisa stepped into the alley, the weight of dread clung to her like an unwelcome cloak. It was constricting, every instinct screaming at her to turn back, to retreat into the familiarity of her home, familiarity that had turned into a chamber of horrors. "Here, Mom." Max's small voice was a fragile thread, pulling her focus back to him. He pressed against her, his tiny fingers gripped tightly around her hand, trembling. "What if we can't find a way out?" "I don't know," she whispered, a chill washing over her as the darkness ahead seemed to breathe, almost alive. Shadows danced in the corners of her vision, lurking just beyond the edges of the dim alley. "Move," she urged, urgency propelling them forward. They stepped cautiously, glancing over their shoulders, as if the very shadows harbored malicious intent, ready to drag them back into the horror they had escaped. As they ventured deeper, a faint flickering light appeared at the end of the alleyway, like a beacon in the grasping darkness. Hope stirred in her chest, but apprehension followed close behind. "Keep moving, Max," she urged, but the shadows remained at her heels, inching forward, whispering sweet nothings of despair. Suddenly, a shrill screech echoed from the darkness behind them. Lisa froze, feeling the hairs on her neck rise. "What was that?" "Mom." Max tugged at her sleeve, eyes wide. The laughter came again, high-pitched and mocking, reverberating off the alley walls, morphing into a cacophony of voices that seemed to rise from the very ground. "You think you can escape? You're already part of the show," they taunted. Terror clawed up her spine. "Run!" She yanked Max with her, his small feet stumbling to keep pace. The flickering light pulled her forward like a magnet, something sweetly surreal amid the dread. With every step, the walls seemed to close in on her. A surge of memories hit her, the figure in the living room, the symbols, a promise. Could they be the key to reversing this? Would they ever see the dawn again? They reached the glowing light, breathless. A rickety door stood ajar, pulsing light spilling into the suffocating night. "This way." She beckoned, pushing the door wide and stepping inside. Inside, the atmosphere shifted. The walls were adorned with strange symbols, resembling the one she'd shattered. Flickering candles outlined the space in a warm, flickering glow, casting long shadows that danced like phantoms. A figure loomed at the far end. Another shadow? No, this one was dressed like the mysterious savior from before, but older, their expression twisted in pain, face gaunt as if they hadn't seen light in years. "You shouldn't have come here," they rasped. "But we need help," Lisa cried. "Help? There is no help for you." The figure's eyes widened with manic desperation. "You are part of the binding now. The show, it feeds on fear. You have awakened something that should have remained asleep." The shadows slithered closer. Lisa could feel a cold tendril caress her ankle, paralyzing her with icy terror. "Mom," Max whimpered, rooted to the spot, the uncertainty overwhelming him. "I'm here, Max," she breathed, gathering her courage. "We can fight this." The figure raised a trembling hand, a warning, but it was too late. The shadows lunged, a savage tide crashing against them. The overwhelming darkness swallowed the warm light, and it felt as if every whisper of anguish they had heard materialized into the shadows, surrounding them with fear. "Stay close. Whatever happens, don't let go." But would they be able to resist? The alley's walls closed in around them, suffocatingly tight, the laughter growing louder, taunting them, marking their despair as a celebrated show, the audience unseen, waiting for the next act. Would Lisa and Max break free from the shadows, or would they become the next victims in this twisted, unending horror story? A piercing scream echoed into the night, their fight or flight moment already eclipsed by desperation. The line between courage and fear blurred like the flicker of a dying flame. As the shadows dove in, darkness consumed all until only silence remained, a chilling reminder of the battle they had yet to face and the nightmares that still awaited. The shadows converged upon them, a swirling vortex of despair and malice. Lisa gasped as the cold tendrils wrapped tighter around her leg, pulling her deeper into a chasm of darkness. Panic surged within her chest as she looked down at Max, his terrified eyes reflecting the fear she felt. "Mom, I can't!" he cried, his voice breaking as the shadows tugged him away. "Hold on to me!" Lisa screamed, her voice barely rising above the cacophony of cruel laughter that echoed throughout the room. The figure, once the symbol of hope, stood frozen with fear, the look on their face shifting from urgency to terror. In that moment, Max's gaze caught something in the dim flickering light, a fragment of the shattered symbol, glowing faintly on the floor. With a burst of adrenaline, Lisa reached down, gripping the shard tightly as if it were a lifeline. "Max, grab the symbol," she ordered, desperate. The shadows tightened their grip as if they sensed her intent, wrenching Max away from her. Time slowed. She watched him struggle against the darkness, fear etching into every line on his small face. "No! I won't let you take him." With every ounce of strength, Lisa pulled the symbol closer, feeling its energy surge through her body. The shadows hissed, recoiling at the warmth of its glow. Fueled by maternal instinct, she thrust the shard forward, and a blinding light exploded from it, pushing against the encroaching darkness. A scream, a haunting wail pierced through the cacophony as the shadows writhed in agony, shrinking away from the light. "Run, Max! Now!" Lisa's voice rang clear as she surged forward to shield her son. Max stumbled, eyes wide as he rushed to her side, but the shadows fought back, snapping at their heels. The rickety door at the far end of the room beckoned like a distant dream. "We can't stop now," Lisa shouted, her heart racing. They dashed through the chaos, dodging dark tendrils that lashed out like whip cracks. As they neared the door, the figure broke from their trance. "It's not safe. The light won't last," they warned, their voice trembling. "Even if you escape, the binding is forever." But there was no time for revelations. They burst through the door and into the street outside, panting as fresh air slammed into them. Max looked back, the glow from the inside piercing against the night. "Mom, what about the symbol? What if it doesn't work?" Breathless, Lisa knelt and gripped his shoulders firmly. "We'll make it work. We have to find a way to break the binding." The laughter echoed again, cruel and mocking, but high in the air, the stars blinked as if alive, whispering of hope. In the flickering light behind them, they both heard the figure's voice, distorted but clear, drifting like smoke. "You can't outrun the darkness. It's inside you now. Let us go, Max." Lisa pulled him toward the street, urging him to focus on the space ahead. Each step felt heavier, as if the shadows were unfurling, spreading their darkness into the night. Ahead, a rustling caught her attention. A figure emerged from the shadows at the street's edge. With dread pooling in her stomach, Lisa felt a chilling claustrophobia closing in again. The stranger wore a tattered cloak, the hood obscuring their face, only the thin line of their mouth visible. "You shouldn't have broken the binding," they hissed, voice dripping with foreboding. "You've only just begun to lose everything." Lisa's heart thundered in her chest. "What do you mean?" she demanded, backing away, dragging Max behind her. The figure took a step forward, revealing piercing eyes that glinted with malice. "What you awaken cannot be undone. It's watching you, waiting." In that moment, Lisa understood. The darkness wasn't just outside. It had begun to seep into their very beings, and escaping was only the beginning. As dread wrapped around her, tails of shadow unfurled behind them like a predatory cat watching its prey, ready to pounce. What awaited them in the depths of that abyss? Would the light they unleashed bring them salvation or lead them deeper into the nightmare? The figure grinned, a malicious smile that chilled her to the bone. Run if you must, but there will be nowhere left to hide. A night filled with uncertainty stretched before them, and the shadows crawled closer again. Where would they go now? The urgency clawed at her, desperate for answers in this game of terror. The figure's chilling laughter echoed against the brick buildings, bouncing wildly off the walls and wrapping around Lisa like a shroud. She glared at the cloaked stranger and then shoved Max behind her, eyes darting down the street, searching for an escape. "Stay close to me, Max," she whispered, though her voice trembled. Each heartbeat reverberated in her ears, drowning out the distant sounds of the city. What once felt like a safe haven now loomed with darkness. The cloaked figure tilted their head, the hood obscuring their face, but giving off an unsettling energy. "You're still blind to your fate," they whispered, sounding almost amused. "This is only the beginning of what you will endure unless you offer me something in return." "Offer you what?" Lisa snapped, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "We don't have anything you want." A light flickered in the figure's eyes. "Everything has a price. And what you owe is more than you can comprehend." Lisa tightened her grip on Max, the shard of the symbol still hot in her pocket, warmth radiating against her skin like a heartbeat of its own. "Just leave us alone." She could feel the shadows slithering ever closer, a creeping cold coiling around her ankles. "Alas, it's never that simple," the figure taunted, stepping forward. With every inch they moved, the darkness behind them surged, consuming the space between breaths. Lisa couldn't ignore it any longer. She felt it seep through her skin, whispering secrets of despair. A memory flickered in her mind, a warning from an old friend who believed too deeply in the supernatural. "You have to die to everything you were to survive," they had said. "It's when you let the darkness consume you that it shows its true face." "What do you want?" Lisa demanded, her heart racing. She felt Max's small hand tighten around her arm. The figure paused, eyes glinting. "I want what binds you. Give me the light you hold, and I will grant you safe passage." "No!" Max cried, trembling, as his grip slackened. "Mom, don't! It's a trick." But doubt nodded Lisa. If the darkness was indeed inside them, entwined with their essence, could this be the only way out? "Your only chance for escape lies with me," the figure insisted. "The light will destroy them. All you have to do is trust." Before she could respond, cold fingers snaked around her wrist from the shadows, pulling her toward an abyss of despair. She screamed, but the light from the symbol flickered uncertainly, failing to fend off the consuming darkness. "Lisa! Help me!" Max's terrified cry cut through the chaos, bringing her focus back to her son, who was struggling against the darkness. Desperation surged within her once again. "Hold on, Max." She summoned every ounce of strength, every prayer she'd ever whispered. Gripping the shard tightly, she thrust it forward, channeling the warm energy into a blinding flash. Light burst from the shard, forming a barrier between them and the shadows. "Go! Now!" she shouted, shoving Max toward the brighter end of the street. The shadows writhed violently, screaming in protest, but the cloaked figure raised a hand, seemingly unfazed. "This means nothing. Light can only hold the darkness at bay for so long. You will return to me." They raced down the street, breaths ragged, as a cacophony of hissing shadows tailed them. The streets twisted and turned unnaturally, leaving Lisa disoriented, unsure of where they were headed. "Mom, where do we go?" Max gasped, his small legs struggling to keep up. "I don't know." "Just keep running," she yelled, mind racing. "We need to find someone who can help." Each step felt like a chase through quicksand, even with the light guiding them. The looming uncertainty pressed closer, as if breathing down her neck. Suddenly, an alley broke through to their left, shrouded in an eerie mist. The world around them seemed to fade, colors dulling as if swallowed by the darkness. "Mom, what if it's a trap?" Max hesitated, glancing back at the ominous shadows that threatened to swallow them whole. Lisa felt the pull of the darkness behind them, seeps of ice stinging her skin. "We can't let that be the end. It might be our only chance." As they turned into the alley, a cold chill wrapped around them, deeper than any winter night. And in the depths of that fog, a whisper echoed, "Escape is an illusion. It will always find you." Lisa's heart dropped, and dread washed over her. How long until the shadows would reclaim them? Was there truly no sanctuary? Would they find refuge in this alley? Or was it simply another trap laid by their unseen enemy? "Look, Mom!" Max gasped, pointing into the mist, where shapes moved like shadows, faces obscured. "What are those?" In that moment, an inkling of something ancient and terrible stirred in the darkness, and Lisa knew they were being watched. What lay ahead? Were the answers they sought just shadows away, or were they stepping right into the mouth of something far worse? The alley seemed to narrow, trapping them like prey about to be devoured. With the shadows creeping, the darkness slicing at their heels, one spark of doubt smoldered in her mind. How far could they run before the darkness caught them again? The alley was tighter than she'd anticipated, the walls closing in on them as the mist thickened, swirling like tendrils of smoke. Shadows danced just beyond her vision, ready to pounce, eager to devour. Lisa's heart raced, a deafening drum echoing in the suffocating silence. "Mom?" Max's voice trembled, breaking the stillness. Fear laced his words, turning them into shards that dug into her resolve. She wanted to reassure him, to tell him everything would be okay, but the haunting whispers in the air suffocated her thoughts. "What's in the mist?" "I don't know, but we can't stay here," she urged, forcing a brave face. Yet with every step forward, the chill seeped deeper into her bones, gnawing at her defenses. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around her, entwining her thoughts like dark ivy. "Offer your light," they beckoned, each syllable coated in temptation. Max whimpered beside her, his small frame trembling. The shadows flickered with life, stretching forward like claws eager to drag them into a pit of despair. She felt a pull toward them, an eerie attraction drawing her deeper into the darkness. "Keep moving," she snapped, urgency lacing her tone as she pushed Max ahead. They stumbled into a small clearing in the alley, a breath of relief until they realized its occupant. A figure sat against the wall, shrouded in murky shadows, face hidden beneath a veil of greasy hair. Gnarled hands trembled as they clutched something, a weathered book, its pages worn and stained as if steeped in the sorrow of ages. Lisa's heart raced anew. "What do you want?" she breathed, eyes flicking between the stranger and the advancing darkness. "Bargains are struck in shadows," a voice rasped, low and slithering. "But what will you give in return?" "Mom, let us go!" Max tugged at her sleeve, sensing the danger simmering in the air. But Lisa froze, fascinated and terrified by the book. "Can you help us?" she asked, words slipping out before she could think. "We need to escape the darkness." The figure's laughter echoed, a raspy breath entwined with madness. "Escape? The darkness is your true nature. It's all you are." Shadows flickered like flames around them, revealing haunting faces that twisted in pain, lost in their eternal cries. Lisa shuddered, the weight of his words hanging like a noose around her neck. "No, it can't be true." She shook her head, but as those shadows edged closer, doubt consumed her. "They are bound to you as you are to them. Only through surrender can you be free," the figure hissed. With each second, the air thickened, suffocating them both physical and mentally. Lisa gripped the shard, the heat pulsing against her palm, but its glow waned beneath the overwhelming tide of darkness. "Max, "Hold on to me," she shouted, drawing him closer. But even his wide eyes, filled with fear, sent shivers down her spine. What if she couldn't save him? Suddenly, a piercing wail echoed from the depths of the mist, jolting Lisa back. Max's grip tightened as they both turned to find the shadows solidifying, morphing into indistinct shapes reaching hungrily for them. The figure raised a hand, palm open and inviting. "Join me, Lisa. Embrace your fate. The darkness grants powers beyond imagination. A chance to become something more, something free." "No!" A visceral scream erupted from her. "We want to give in." Lisa forced herself to move, dragging Max along, but the shadows surged forward, crashing down like waves, drowning her thoughts in panic. "Let me go!" Max cried out, struggling against her grip, fear multiplying in his eyes. "Never." She tightened her hold, adrenaline fueling her resolve. "We're not them. We can change." But the edges of her vision blurred, the dark forming faces of those she thought lost, pleading with her to accept. "Free us!" they cried, voices mingling into a symphony of desperation. With a surge of strength, she threw the light shard into the thrumming mist, hoping it would pierce the suffocating shroud. It erupted in a blinding flash. The shadows recoiled, screeching in fury, a cacophony of anguish that nearly deafened her. They stumbled back, hands raised, pulled by an unseen force. In that moment of chaos, clarity struck Lisa. They weren't just seeking to devour her, they were desperate for her to join them, to relinquish and embrace. As the light expanded, illuminating the dark corners of the alley, she felt the shadows churn and shift around them, disoriented, claws still reaching. But would the light be enough? Would it be powerful enough to pierce the heart of the dark and deliver them from its wicked grasp? Taking a deep breath, she turned to Max together. "We can fight it." Just then, a familiar voice echoed through the shadows, chilling Lisa to her core. "You wish to defy your nature? You will pay dearly." In that moment, dread filled her entirely. The darkness chortled, promising them a fate worse than death. What new horror awaited them within their unanswered fears? Would they stand united, or would the shadows pull them apart once and for all? The light surged around them, a glowing barrier against the encroaching shadows. But it flickered, threatening to die as the darkness shrieked, a banshee-esque wail reverberating through the alley. "Mom!" The shadows' Max's voice trembled, barely audible over the cacophony. Lisa instinctively shielded him, but her courage wavering as the walls of their safe space began to pulsate, as if the very alleyway was alive, breathing in fear. "Hold on, Max. Don't look away." Her words felt weak even to her own ears. The moment the shadows recoiled, Lisa caught glimpses of the faces trapped within. Sorrowful eyes stared back at her, tales of despair etched into features twisted by pain. They were shells of humans, mouths forming silent screams. "Join us," they whispered, voices intertwining into a haunting lullaby that sought to lull her into yielding. "It's so much easier not today." Gritting her teeth, Lisa gathered her resolve, channeling every ounce of will into the flickering light. She pushed forward, each step heavy against the oppressive atmosphere, dragging Max behind her as they plunged deeper into the alley, away from the figure and the shadowed entities clawing to draw them near. "Where are we going?" Max gasped, eyes wide and glistening with fear. "Anywhere but here." Lisa spat, her chest tightening as panic threatened to claw its way in. The shadows chased, a cunning predator stalking its prey. The sinister laughter, low and guttural, echoed behind them, reverberating off wet, damp walls. Suddenly, Lisa spotted a door, half concealed by tangled vines, a forgotten exit leading into darkness. There was no other option. This way. "Quick!" She yanked open the door, a creak that sent shivers down her spine, urging Max inside. Eerie silence surrounded them, swallowed by the surrounding shadows as Lisa slammed the door shut, blocking out the chaos. They stood in what appeared to be an abandoned shop, dust thick in the air, but the air had a different quality, oppressive, alive. "Is it safe, Mom?" Max whimpered. "I don't know," she breathed, her pulse racing, listening hard for any sign of the shadows. The shop was eerily still. Through cracks in the floorboards, her mind raced with what waited beyond the door. Just stay close to me." Suddenly, a raspy voice fractured the stillness. "You think you can escape?" It slithered into the shadows, oozing through the walls like poison. Lisa's heart dropped again. The figure, the voice, it was everywhere and nowhere at once. "Come out!" she shouted defiantly. "What do you want from us?" It chuckled, a sound that crawled under her skin. "You already know. You feel it, the truth is within you." "No. I want to listen." Lisa shook her head, her voice rising in defiance. But dread wove its way through her mind like curling tendrils, pressing in on her, whispering doubts softened by the darkness. Max tugged at her sleeve, horrified. "Mom, please!" Before she could respond, the air shifted, rippling as if alive. Shadows began creeping from the corners, curling toward the two like snakes hunting their prey. "Join me, Lisa. Embrace the darkness like you were meant to." "No!" She dragged Max backward, urgency boiling through her veins. "We want to be like you." Yet with every heartbeat, a new voice joined the cacophony, a familiar one, her mother's, long lost and buried beneath layers of regret and sorrow. "Lisa, it's so easy here. Just give in. Let go." Lisa covered her ears, trembling. "No, I can't." Vision surged in her mind, her mother's smile, the warmth of her embrace, now tainted by the darkness. "Mom, that's not you." It was a lie she desperately wanted to believe, yet shadows of doubt took root. "Embrace your true self," the voice of the figure echoed, creeping closer still, fast as a thought, wrapping around her like barbed wire. The shadows drew nearer, consuming her courage, shifting in excitement. "You were destined to follow." Panic rose anew, a surge fueled by desperation. "We have to find a way out. There has to be a way." She looked toward a window at the back of the shop, light flickering outside, a possibility. Just as she turned, a chilling realization gripped her. Those within the shadow were not just pleading. They were warning her. "Do you know what you're getting into? They will never let you leave." Lisa's heart raced. Who could she trust? As the shadows began to blend into the form of individuals she once loved, a persistent question clawed in her mind. Would she make the ultimate sacrifice to save her son? Would she risk everything to protect him, or was surrender simply the easier path? The darkness whispered and beckoned, but the window creaked open with a promise of light. Which would she choose? And where would that decision lead them? Something in the shadows stirred, a new presence emerging, and Lisa braced herself. What awaited them in the light? Hope, or an even darker fate? Max's grip on Lisa tightened. The cold air was thick with an uneasy tension, every fiber of her being screamed for escape. She had to make a choice, and quickly. "Mom, what is happening?" Max's voice wavered, straining under the weight of unseen horrors that pressed against them. "Stay close," she said, futilely trying to reassure him even as her own pulse raced. Pushing aside the thought of giving in, Lisa moved toward the window. Each step felt slow, dragging her down like lead. Shadows seemed to whisper promises as she passed fragments of sweet nothings that beguiled her into resignation. The window frame was splintered, glass shards glinting like malevolent teeth, but the light beyond shimmered like a beacon, promising safety. Lisa reached her hand out, ready to shatter the glass and hurl them both into the light. But as she stepped closer, the creeping shadows surged, a wave of icy breath that turned her blood to ice. "You want to know the truth?" The raspy voice coiled around her, shivering through her spine. "What made you come here? What you left behind?" "Stop it!" she cried, forcing herself to face the voices, the shadows, refusing to be a puppet to their games. "We're leaving," Max whimpered, eyes darting around the room, panic amplifying as the shadows gathered, thickening like a storm. They writhed, a mass of dark despair that threatened to swallow them whole. "Mom, I want to go home." "Home?" The figure's laughter echoed, dripping with malice. "This is your home now. You can never go back. The past doesn't want you anymore." Lisa shook her head, her heart pounding in a frantic rhythm that seemed to resonate with the whispers. Each reference to home was a blade, twisting deeper into her fears. The shadows grew more defined, forming arms that reached toward Max, almost caressing him, desperate for his warmth. "Mom!" Max shrieked, slinking away as shadows opened their mouths, exposing darkness wanting to consume him. "Get away from him!" Lisa roared, bolting forward, swinging her arms in an attempt to ward off the encroaching darkness. She was scared, terrified. But the thought of losing Max ignited her resolve. As she pushed through the mass of shadows, they screamed, a chorus of agony rattling her spirit. She felt fear settle in her gut, cold and unyielding, but she knew she had to endure. "We won't let you take us," Lisa shouted as her hands clawed for the light. Suddenly, the shadows shrieked, a collective howl that morphed into cries of pain and pleading. "You think you can fight us? You're one of us." Their words slashed through her darkest fears like a knife. "Not if I can help it," Lisa panted, adrenaline coursing through her veins as she neared the window. Just before contact, the window began to warp, the glass swirling like molten ice. It pulsed with an unsettling energy that sent shocks up her arms. She hesitated. Was it freedom, or another trap? Looming closer, she noticed that even the trembling floorboards trembled less under her weight. The air was heavier now, thicker than before, colluding with the weight of her despair. "Join us and come home," 1,000 voices whispered. Max was still behind her, his eyes wide with fear, and yet even he seemed to flicker in her periphery, wavering in and out like a candlelight as danced. In the darkness, her own doubts surged. Did she want to heed the shadow's call? Could she abandon her boy? As Lisa pressed against the warped window, she felt it give slightly a sliver of hope. But at that moment, as her palm connected with the cold surface, a terrifying entity surged from the shadows, coiling around her arms. "Lisa!" Max screamed as it pulled her backward, the light flickering almost out of existence. She fought, struggling against the darkness now embracing her like a mother's grasp. But for every ounce of defiance she showed, the shadows retaliated cruelly. "You cannot resist forever." With one final push, Max lunged toward her, bursting free from the shadow's grasp and wrapping his arms around her waist. The darkness screeched like a wounded animal, shuddering back reluctantly, allowing them a moment. Lisa felt the light pulsate, giving her strength, igniting a resolve she thought lost. "We'll break free," she shouted. The window was just within reach, the light growing ever so brighter. But something deep within her hesitated, as if the light revealed something she wasn't ready to confront. Intense shadows surged forward once more, greedy and relentless. The raspy voice edged closer. "Do you think leaving the darkness means leaving it behind? You'll always carry its weight." Was it true? Did she even want to leave? Lisa's heart raced not from weakness, but from a fear that threatened to consume her sanity. Was battling with a light that flickered with possibility. "Mom, let us go!" Max cried, pulling her back toward the light. Lisa's hand hovered at the window, indecision gripping her heart, as terror echoed in her ears. Would they find freedom, or would they be devoured by the shadows that sought to claim them? The last of the glass trembled under her touch, and the whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar. Then, with a searing snap, the barrier shattered. What waited beyond the shattered glass? A sanctuary, or another nightmare? The air shifted violently, as the glass splintered, dislodging fragments that cut through the oppressive darkness. Lisa felt the world tumble backward, shadows retracting like snakes chased by a flame. "Come on, Max!" she shouted, pulling him close as they leapt through the jagged opening, tumbling into a world cloaked in silence. It felt different here. The shadows, though still lurking, were dimmed, as if the light they'd escaped into held some kind of power. They stood in a desolate street, cracked pavement beneath their feet, flickering street lamps casting a soft glow that fought against the night. The presence of the shadows was still palpable, but for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Lisa could breathe. "Mom, are we safe?" Max asked, his voice quivering. She glanced around, half expecting the shadows to pounce at any moment, but saw nothing but the remnants of a forgotten town. We might be," she replied hesitantly, her heart pounding wild rhythms, still reverberating with the threat they had barely escaped. Footsteps echoed in the distance, pulling their attention. A figure moved toward them, silhouetted against the dim light, and fear clawed back at her throat. But as it drew closer, Lisa felt the light from within her come alive, illuminating the stranger, the familiar figure from before, the one who had warned them at the threshold of despair. "Lisa!" The figure, eyes glinting with urgency, reached for them, the flickering light intensifying around their aura. "You broke the binding. You must leave now." All at once, panic surged back, explanations collided in Lisa's mind, questions bubbling to the surface. "But what about the shadows? They're not gone." "No," the figure said sharply, sensing her fear. "But you have disrupted the darkness. You must find the source before it regains its power." Max trembled, clutching Lisa's leg. "What do we do?" "There's a house at the end of the street. It holds the remnants of your binding. You must destroy it, complete what you started." Each word carried a weight, urgency tinged with a note of desperation. Without waiting, Lisa took Max's hand firmly. "Then let us go." They dashed forward, feet pounding against the cracked pavement. Lisa knew they couldn't falter now. With each step, she felt the darkness closing in, fingers of shadow brushing against her skin, threatening to drag them back into despair. The house loomed before them, a shadow of its former self, walls crumbling like ash. Lisa's heart raced, a mixture of fear and resolve flooded her senses. "We need to hurry," she urged, pressing ahead, every instinct screamed to turn back. Yet something, an ember of hope, urged her on. As they neared, a wave of cold washed over her, bone deep. Shadows twisted around the doorframe, whispering promises of despair and darkness. "Stay with me, Max," she breathed, fear tightening its grip on her heart. With shaking hands, she pushed open the door, its creak echoing through the stillness, an invitation for them to step into the void. Inside, the air was thick with dread, oppressive silence reverberating like an unspoken threat. They moved cautiously, the debris underfoot crackling like dry leaves, each sound too loud in the distorted quiet. In the center of the room, a circle of faded symbols lay, faintly glowing, remnants of the binding that threatened to reclaim them. That was it, the key. "Max, we have to destroy them," she whispered, her voice a thread barely above the hum of the darkness. "Now?" His widening eyes reflected the fear that threatened to swallow them whole. "Now!" Lisa pulled the shard from her pocket, its light flickering like a heartbeat against the overwhelming darkness creeping near. Together, they stepped into the circle, shadows gathering, whispering, trying to hold them back, to pull them down. With a steadying breath, she raised the shard, feeling the warmth radiate through her arm. "This is for you, Max," she whispered, the words more a prayer than a promise. As she plunged the shard into the sigil at the center, a blinding light erupted, engulfing everything in sight. Shadows twisted, screeching, their cries echoing with the piercing agony of a million souls. The walls trembled, and in the chaos, Lisa felt her resolve ignite. "We can't stop, keep holding tight." Max clung to her, his small frame anchoring her even as the light expanded, filling the room and pushing against the shadows, the oppressive force breaking apart in howls of despair. And then, with a deafening silence, it shattered. All at once, the darkness splintered, dissolved into the ether. The shadows, with all their might, were washed away, banished to realms unknown, snuffed out like a candle against the tempest of the light. Lisa shielded her eyes, overwhelmed by the brilliance that radiated, consuming the room and filling it with warmth, the first true warmth she had felt in what seemed like lifetimes. As the light receded, Lisa gasped, the world around them settling back into place, still and silent, yet strangely peaceful. They stood, bathed in golden sunlight, the shadows nowhere in sight. Did it work? Max asked, raising his eyes to meet hers, vulnerability reshaping his features. I think it did, she replied breathlessly, the weight of despair lifting off her chest. But as they turned to leave, the figure from before appeared again, smiling gently. You have faced the shadows within and without. Remember, the light is your power, but darkness is always waiting. Keep it close. Lisa nodded, a new understanding softening her heart. Thank you. They stepped back out into the sunlight, hand in hand, knowing that they had faced the impossible and emerged because of each other. The shadows had been defeated today, but the journey forward was theirs to navigate together bravely. As a family. As the warmth of daylight bathed them, they walked into their new beginning. What lay ahead would be theirs to discover, but the promise of hope now touched every step they took. This is it. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive tales that could haunt you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Your support means everything. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what just happened. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this breathtaking conclusion. Your love for this channel keeps our stories alive.